All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another wonderful podcast episode recording. I'm your host today, Marcus Hart. I have a wonderful author that I would love to introduce to some and hopefully to many more. He is the author of the book, The Martyrdom, The Revenge of the Art. It was written it was written in the early 1990s. It is a surrealist poem dealing with the state of New Jerzip, New Jersey, and the fictitious communist left organization. One portion has already been available. It is a computer poem with basic programming and a sound of which only text is printed. And the author is Mr. Stephen Sweigart. He has studied as an elective, two courses in Bible at Xavier in Cincinnati, and Protestant theology at Temple University. And he has done countless other things, and he believes that the Christian religions are a good methodology, but not good in that of a savior or Messiah or afterlife. So we're gonna talk to him and explore more of the book and some other ideas. So how's it going, Mr. Sweigart?
Very, very well. I'm happy to do the interview.
It's a pleasure to have you. So I got a chance to kind of introduce you briefly and also the book. But in your own words, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I've been writing for 50 years. I have a BA from Temple University. I went to one semester of graduate school, and I have studied classical piano, but I stopped for 20 years because I was working, and they didn't have classes at night from Rutgers in Temple. They had it at Temple, but not at Rutgers, where I was going later. And I studied music history at the University of Pennsylvania, and I also studied psychiatry at Xavier and the University of Pennsylvania. But then I fell in love with poetry, and I left. Penn didn't want me to leave because they said my talent was in science, but I wanted to go, and Temple accepted me, and I really had some good teachers at Temple, and I have a good background, I think.
Yeah, and it seems like it really sets up the stage for this particular book. And what jumps out to me is the fact that you develop a love for poetry. And in this book, this amazing piece here, it seems that like it's one of a kind. And I can't honestly say that I've seen anything like it. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, I want to first tell about the portion I think published first. It's The Curse of Prometheus, Dower 12. It's the 12th. It starts with the 8th part because that's my 8th poem, 8th section of poetry, and then it ends with the 13th. And this is the 12th. It's called Dower 12, The Curse of Prometheus. There's a little humor in that. But it was, I studied in graduate school, which one semester, and I studied Chaucer, and then I went and decided to study medieval plays on my own, and the poem is set up on medieval poetry, and it's English poetry, where it has scaffolds, where they get up on a scaffold like they did in the Middle Ages, and there was falsehood and et cetera like that, insanity and things of that sort, just like they did in the old Christian medieval plays. And that's what I based it on. And it worked good for The Curse of Prometheus because that's what The Curse of Prometheus is about, is Pandora's box, if people know that, or Pandora's box. And what that was Pandora, who was created by Zeus, opened the box she wasn't supposed to, and out the curse of mankind came with all the afflictions of mankind, which is similar to today, with the pandemic. And I've written in a number of my poetry. I was impressed when I was in Pisa a number of times. The Triumph of Death, which was about the Black Plague, and that's been a theme in a lot of my poetry, and that's why I was attracted to the Curse of Prometheus. Also, I've written. I hope I'm not talking too fast. Written about the Prometheus, the Firebringer, and I've also written the Creatures of Prometheus. All three parts of the myth, besides the one Aeschylus survived by Aeschylus, Prometheus bound. So there's one speech in it that's kind of very good. It's about the director of the nation. I came up with that because Trump was talking about running for office, and I was thinking that we would have a businessman, a director of the nation instead. And then I also ended it with the Cowboys are scoring, and he stops his speech. The person in it. It's not Trump. It's not Trump. I don't dislike Trump, and I don't dislike Biden. I'm neutral to both.
Right.
But it's turned out that Chris Christie sat with Jerry Jones in Philadelphia at the Eagles game, and people in South Jersey like me are Eagles fans. And he sat with Jerry Jones, the head of the Cowboys, and it turned out that I predicted both of them to be in this poem. It wasn't. I'm not that I have magical powers. Mm-hmm. It's just it was, just easy to figure out that somebody would be a Cowboys fan that would run for office. It's easy to figure out. And same with the director of the nation thing. So that's that. And the whole poem is about the Pandora's box. And it relates to now the pandemic. In Shakespeare's time, I'm talking a lot. Shakespeare's time, the theaters were closed down because of the plague also. So it's nothing new. It's not good, but it's happened in history a number of times.
Yeah, I find that very fascinating that you really adopting a lot of the influences that were on medieval literature, into this particular writing, and like you said, you weren't intentionally trying to prophesize what a political candidate having a love of the Cowboys, but it happened, and we see that a lot in writing. A lot of highly inspired authors tend to get a lot of things right. And when we look at some of the main influences of medieval literature, like feudalism, the church, and a code of conduct called chivalry. What are these, like some of the main installations that like you put into your writing?
Yeah, I think in the other 5 parts I have about people being like serfs today, with capitalism. Even though we think we're better, we're really not. But I also wanted to say, I just skipped my mind. I also wanted to say that the poem itself is surrealistic. I studied at Temple University music the history of art, and I learned surrealism. And it's about that time, I think, or earlier, they came up with zip codes, so I called it New Jerzip, the state of New Jersey, and I have New Jersey on the cover of the book, and I was a member of the Communist Party USA. They were very nice to me, and for 8 years, but I don't totally agree with them. I'm kind of an independent. I talked about this in the other podcast, but I don't want to talk about it now. Mm-hmm. But I kind of believe in China, and I believe in Kadar, who liked small businesses from Hungary. I spent a number of time in Hungary, which I talked in the other podcast. Because I had met a family that had relatives there, and I went there a number of times, and I got to like Kadar. but I'm kind of an independent communist. I'm not. China likes the stock market, and most communists don't, but I do. I have a security certificate in the state of New Jersey, and but I don't practice, and so this is what the poem has to do with, and it has to do with lots to do with, and so does my book, the Lives of the Virgins, has to do with the big drug companies, and we ran into that with the opioid epidemic, because I wrote about this in this poem, The Martyrdom, about the big drug companies, and I wrote about psychological drugs, and in the prisons they oversedate people. It's all right to have the drugs, but they oversedate people, and it's really not human rights. They really sedate people with the drugs, and they killed hundreds of thousands of people with the opioids. And I'm not predicting again this, but it's easy to see. My own life, I felt it. That the big drug companies in capitalism only care mainly about making money, and they do good work. The scientists are great. I talk about this in the Lives of the Virgins. I mean, in the Curse of Prometheus. No, in the Curse of Jesus of Nazareth, about this, that historians and artists can see the future, but the politicians never saw the pandemic. I write about this in the Curse of Jesus of Nazareth. They never saw the pandemic, and the artists and historians see this, and the scientists never did anything about it either. They never did anything about it. But the scientists saved us. But the big companies, they only support the scientists because they make money. And they're very good. The big companies, they make new drugs. They made this vaccine, but their main purpose is to make money in capitalism. Everything, and I talk in, and I'm going to cut off in a minute. I talk in the last podcast about I never could get printed because the bookstores only take what sells. In capitalism, only thing that does is sells, and that's censorship. And now with Amazon and Walmart and the big companies online, I can print my books.
Yeah, things has definitely changed since since Amazon and Walmart has definitely changed the way the book game is, and I definitely believe with the mention of communists on the back cover, you probably had a couple people kind of like raising their eyebrows a bit, and so I just wonder, like, what type of reaction or what type of feedback have you gotten, like, from anyone that has read the book before?
Well, the Curse of Prometheus has got very good feedback. I have had agents, and I have movie people want to write movie scripts about it, but it's too much of a risk for me to do that at this point in time. And the back cover of is my mistake. Of the Martyrdom is wrong. Not the thing about the poem, but about my life, about myself. That was really the same back cover of the Curse of Jesus of Nazareth. It's not really a religious poem. It has some religion in it. That was a mistake of mine, and that's being redone. I'm having my portion of it is redone, but the part about the poem about the fictitious communist left is correct, and that's what the poem is basically about, a fictitious organization. And it's communism, in my opinion, and nobody believes me, but if it's going to take place, it's not going to be like China or Cuba or Venezuela. It will be about our culture. It will be about our culture, and it will be evolved from our culture, because each communist country is different. Even the Russian Communist Party, they're the second biggest party. They're very small. that they're the second biggest party in Russia. They're Stalinist, and I'm partially Stalinist too. I believe in big things, a big industry, and I believe in biggest. But I believe that Amazon should pay more money. And I have Tesla solar panels, and they should pay their people more money and take care of them better. So I really believe in that. And same with Walmart. But I want to say that they really should. But they don't censor. They take all books. Amazon takes all books, and so does Barnes and Noble. They take everybody's books, and the bookstores don't. They don't. And if you want to get your books in the bookstore, I've been offered by publishers to have to pay them to get them in there. And I won't do that. When I can go online for free.
Exactly. Yeah. I got to tell you, you definitely, speaking some things that like a lot of people can really identify with, and I think you really definitely saying some things that people wish they could say. So just transition a little bit, here, with Jason, Jason 1974, another book that you wrote, that was written, in part of a journey to Italy. How does this tie into like everything that you usually write about?
Well, I write in the Curse of Jesus of Nazareth, a bigger about my background. My father comes from the Pennsylvania Dutch. And there's two types of Pennsylvania Dutch: the Amish and all them, and then the fancy who assimilated into two things. The Germans came here early before the Revolution, and they settled here. And so I'm Pennsylvania Dutch, but my father moved and my grandfather moved to New Jersey, and I'm also a Tuscan Italian. So I write about in the Curse of Jesus of Nazareth, the Tuscan religion, and it's the Etruscans who were defeated by the Romans. They were in charge before the Romans. They were defeated, and my mother comes from. She lived in Lucca. She lived there 25 years. She was born in New York City, but they went back. She met my father in a war. He went 4 years through Africa and Italy in the war, World War II. He met her there, and she decided to meet, and she had relatives in New York. Things were bad in Italy after the war, you know that. And so I visited my grandfather in 1980. My grandmother was dead, but this is my grandfather after I went to Hungary. And I finished the poem there, the Antichrist. But Jason, I started out. I took a trip with a young lady who was my mother got a thing with a foundry in Pietrasanta, where my another cousin lives, and Jack Litchfield was there, and I wrote the poem Bellerophon on that statue. And that's where I got interested as I talked with Kate Delaney about mythology. And that's in New York City. I think it's at Yale, the sculpture. And he has sculptures in Philadelphia and in New York City. He's a famous sculptor. And then Jason is a poem written where I put on the side where it refers to different books that I read. And you have to read the books I read. And then I studied Finnegan's Wake. I'm speaking fast. Studied Finnegan's Wake. I had a whole course at Temple University. And I don't know if you know Finnegan's Wake. He first wrote Ulysses, which is famous. Then Finnegan's Wake, which was made up of different languages, made up of different words. And I decided to take what I learned and put it in that poem. But on the side, I have there's reference to Apollonius Rhodius. So if you read the section of Apollonius Rhodius, then you can understand how I adapted and made up words. That's that poem. But I met a family. I wanted to use Bella Bartok's Bluebeard Castle in a poem, and I put it in Jason. And I had to learn to pronounce Hungarian, which I haven't in 40 years very much. And I visited. She's had relatives there. She was Jewish, and they were secular Jewish family, and I really liked it there. I visited them
Right.
like 3 times on my vacations, and I really liked it there. I really liked it. I went all over Hungary traveling myself, and it was very inexpensive. It was $5 to live with a family in those days, and I had a room with a family, and I would just stay there at night, and then I would travel in the day. I went to numerous cities, and I really liked Budapest, and that's so that I used some Hungarian in that poem and then in the Antichrist. But I'm not very good at pronouncing now because I haven't done it in 40 years working in a business and not being able to speak with anybody. You know what I mean? But I
Right.
was able to at one time be able to speak very well, pronounce very well. I was never fluent, but I could translate to Hungarian. I could translate German. I've translated a German poem it was printed in England in the 70s, and I could translate Italian. I studied Italian at Temple and at Canham County Community College after Temple University. So, and my father told my mother, you can't teach people Italian. They have to learn English. And that was a mistake, a great mistake.
Okay. Yeah. So being that we winding down here, and I think it'd be an excellent last question. Like, a question before a final question is like, what exactly would you like most of your readers to get out of like reading your poetry?
Well, I talked about this with Kate Delaney with Prometheus the Firebringer. It's about Prometheus and Zeus. Zeus is the all-powerful, and Prometheus is the figure, if you know the mythology, who frees mankind. He was punished for that and was chained to a rock, but eventually was freed by Hercules. And then he also created mankind, and that's in my book, Creatures of Prometheus. Besides the lives of poets in there, the great poets, he created mankind out of clay, just like the Christian. There's the Christian mythology, and then there's the Greek mythology of the creation, and he created mankind and womankind out of clay, and I have that in the Creatures of Prometheus. But that's what I want to say. Zeus is the all-powerful, not Zeus, not the president, not the head of capitalism, but the all-powerful people who don't help mankind, and mankind is in a lot of the country is in poverty and things like that, and most of the world, and we have to try to help mankind, and that's what my poetry is about.
I love it. I love it. Really,
And
really.
womankind too. I don't want to just say mankind.
Yeah, womankind.
Because my new poem is the existence of mankind. No politics, nothing about my life. It's about the creation of the world, mythology, creation, and theological creation. And the title is "Exists Mankind," but the subtitle is "Exists Mankind and Womankind."
Excellent.
Creation of mankind and womankind.
I love it. Well, we're definitely looking forward to all that you have to offer the world, and you bring a very important message that I think is very timely for where society has turned to, and how we would love to get our culture and the rest of the world back on track. So, thank you so much for your wonderful work. And it was.
I have one thing to say at the end. I have another book. I have another book coming out. It's called The Afghan War, 2021. That should be out shortly. I'm sorry to cut you off, but thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, well, it was great to be able to talk with you today, Mr. Sweigart. And for those who are listening and would like to know how to find all of Mr. Sweiggart's books, they are available on Amazon. That's the fastest way. You can simply just type in any of his book titles. The easiest one that we be able to type in would be Jason 1974. And then you can just click on his name, and that'll bring up his author profile on Amazon.
Yeah, if you just type, if you just search, I'm sorry, if you just search my name in any of the online sites, just Steven Sweigart, without my W, and you spell it right, you'll get my books on all the online stores. You'll get it.
Yeah, and they're very economical in pricing. They're very economical in pricing, considering inflation. So they're a very good companion to pick up right now if you someone who enjoys binging poetry. So definitely pick it up. I'm going to pick up my copies myself. So thank you today.
I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Make sure you share this wonderful programming with someone you know, someone you don't know, as it does help to further the messaging. Again, I'm your host today, Marcus Hart. Until next time, many blessings, peace, and lots of love.